We are being sold a fake war. It's that simple. The American people are being asked to believe that little Ukraine is valiantly defending itself against the monstrous giant Russia. And its only hope is for the United States to take a stand for freedom and democracy. Except that isn't the case at all. It's a convenient story, but it's a lie. This war was manufactured from the beginning by the globalists and the tyrants in Washington, and designed specifically to cripple our economy and plunge the world into a massive depression, which would help centralize the globalists' power. Don't believe me? Just listen to the globalist puppet master himself, George Soros.
I set up a foundation in Ukraine before Ukraine became independent of Russia. And the foundation has been functioning ever since. There is one person who was very deeply involved in Ukraine, and that's Biden. He had a lot more patience than I had in trying to convert Poroshenko into a democratic leader.
But the opportunity to generate a united Ukraine, getting it right, is within your grasp. And we want to be your partner, your friend in the project. And we're ready to assist.
There is one person who was very deeply involved in Ukraine, and that's Biden.
Let that sink in. George Soros has already been thrown out of Russia and Hungary, his home nation, for meddling in their affairs with his Marxist Open Society Foundation. Now we can see why. Soros, working along with Joe Biden and the globalist hegemony, is toppling governments and installing puppets like Volodymyr Zelensky to do his bidding. And now you have this same man predicting that the Russian invasion of Ukraine will spark a third world war, maybe leading to the end of all mankind. Joe Biden followed that up by warning we've never been closer to nuclear Armageddon than we are today. Are you paying attention? They are trying to start World War III. They are trying to provoke Russia into starting Armageddon. Why? Power. Power and control. Why do you think we're sending tens of billions of dollars to fight a war in Ukraine that we have no business in, when less than a quarter of that amount could have secured our own border? No, Biden and the globalists knew that putting troops on Russia's doorstep and opening the door for Ukraine to join NATO would provoke President Putin into retaliating. They even admitted it back in 1997, 25 years ago.
I think the one place where the greatest consternation would be caused in the short term for admission, having nothing to do with the merit and preparedness of the country to come in, would be to admit the Baltic states now in terms of NATO-Russian, U.S.-Russian relations. And if there was ever anything that was going to tip the balance, were it to be tipped in terms of a vigorous and hostile reaction, I don't mean military, in Russia, it would be that.
And now Biden has agreed to send more of our state-of-the-art weapons to Ukraine to fight Russia, announcing he would authorize a new military aid package for air defense systems, which probably means he's sending Kiev some of our advanced surface-to-air missile systems. Each one of those AMRAAM missiles costs you and me over $1.1 million of our tax dollars. They'll probably need a couple hundred of those. And that's on top of all the money we've already sent to Ukraine. The $40 billion aid package this spring, the $10 billion here, the $12 billion there. Can you keep track of it all? Do you know how much money we've sent to Ukraine? Does anyone? They don't want you to know. Search Google and you'll only come up with $15.2 billion since the beginning of this administration. In reality, The best account shows nearly $100 billion has been shoveled into the raging fire of Ukraine's money laundering furnace. That's enough money to solve poverty in America. At least that's what the liberals tell us. So why send all that money to Ukraine? Well, Ukraine was at the center of a massive child sex trafficking ring a few years ago. Gotta keep that quiet. And Hunter Biden has worked closely with some of the major criminal organizations in Ukraine, including Burisma. And now, the Department of Defense and Hunter Biden's firm, Rosemont Seneca, have been caught funding biolabs in Ukraine doing research on the COVID-19 virus 3 months before COVID was officially released. Are you getting the picture? None of this has anything to do with Russia invading Ukraine. This is a smoke and mirrors campaign coordinated with the corporate media to cover up the greatest scam in the history of our nation, maybe the history of the world. But don't ask any questions. Just wave your flag for Ukraine. And remember, as the Democrats cripple our economy and send all our money and weapons to Ukraine to kick off World War III, Putin is the bad guy. For One America News, I'm Pearson Sharp.